All right, if I am correct, today we are on item 14 of chapter 2, the extraordinary and the supernatural.
Yes.
And here Kardec gave me a big favor that I don't need to give a summary of what I've seen before because this whole item 14 is a summary of everything that I had seen before. So basically, all these items from 1 to 8 are just a synopsis of what we haven't seen so far in this chapter. Okay, and then the next chapter he will deal with the word miracle, which is quite interesting. If anyone wants to go in more depth on miracles, I refer to the book Genesis, where Kardec really spent quite a few pages dealing with the word miracles. All right, who's going to do the reading for us?
Okay. I'll read, Elmo.
Thank you.
Okay. 14. Let us summarize our stance in the following propositions. All spirit phenomena have as their principle the existence of the soul, its survival upon the death of the body, and its ability to man itself. Since they result from a law of nature, these phenomena have nothing extraordinary or supernatural about them, at least in the common meaning of these words. Many events are regarded as supernatural because their cause is unknown and having determined their true cause. Spiritism has relegated them back to the domain of natural phenomena.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, so item 1 is basically the previous chapter when Kardec places the question, are they spirits? And all the phenomena, everything on the spiritualism is based on this very simple principle. There are spirits, and spirits are nothing more than us without a physical body. And we, without a physical body, being called spirits, are able to interact with matter and perform phenomena called spiritual phenomena, or called mediumship eventually. Once all frauds, once basically when everything is ruled out, that it's not a fraud, that it's not a normal phenomena of older nature, everything is ruled out. And that the raps, the noises that we are hearing are not being produced by ourselves or by magnetism or by animals or anything whatsoever. Everything is ruled out. You rule out everything else. So basically, to come to the conclusion that this is a spiritual phenomena is basically what we call the diagnosis of exclusion. You rule out everything else. Then you say, yeah, now this is a spiritual phenomena. It's being produced by spirits, and spirit is nothing more than us without a physical body. And how do we get that? We get to the science of spiritism, the scientific aspect of the doctrine, which is a science primarily of observation and in few instances of experimentation, aware that the experimentation can only happen when the other side, the spiritual side, are willing to participate. Because again, as Chico would say, the telephone rings from there to here. One cannot force a physical phenomenon, a spiritual phenomenon to happen if the spirits do not want to participate in it. Okay?
Okay. Okay. Number 4. Among the incidents called supernatural, Spiritism shows many of them to be impossible in the first place, and therefore places them amongst superstitious beliefs. Number 5. Although Spiritism recognizes a basis of truth for many popular beliefs, it absolutely does not accept all the fantastic stories created by the imagination. 6. To judge Spiritism by facts that it itself does not accept is to show proof of ignorance and complete disregard for the correct opinion.
Thanks. So in these three items, Kardec saying, if something's happened, that we witness these things happening, then it must be in conformity with natural laws. Otherwise, it could not be happening.
Mm.
Spiritism strongly defends this principle. Therefore, to accuse Spiritism or to reject Spiritism because Spiritism deals with the supernatural is just absolutely wrong. It's just being blind to what Spiritism offers. Spiritism is the first one to reject the supernatural, to reject the superstitions. But in that, Spiritism accept the idea that there are some phenomena happening out there that our science cannot explain, but they are happening. The fact that we cannot explain it does not make them impossible, does not make them a fraud. It's just the fact that our science have not evolved enough to be able to explain those phenomena. Spiritism does not get into superstitions, but does not completely reject the possibility that some of the things, so for now called superstitions, may have a explanation, may be explained through science. If not now, eventually it will. I used some time ago the example of the werewolf, which is present in many cultures. Just about all cultures have something of a half man, half wolf, or a man who turns into wolf, and those kind of things. And it's interesting that cultures have not in any way contacted one another, so I could not have learned from one another, have the same kind of superstition. Spiritism rejects the idea that a human being can transform itself into a wolf or half a wolf or whatever the case may be, but does explains the phenomena of lycanthropy. So perhaps there are some seeing mediums who had seen spirits in this process of lycanthropy, not accepting werewolf, but giving an explanation of why just about every culture sees this thing of the werewolf or the man who transformed into a wolf or half human, half wolf. It's so present in all cultures. There is an explanation for it.
Elmo,
Mm-hmm.
just a curious question, because when we invoke our a spirit, and that and ask questions about him to make sure that he is who he's saying he is, it gives facts of his life while incarnate, and that's spiritual phenomena. But how about, I know this, those are rare case, but the incarnate spirits like children, that they don't recognize themselves as they currently incarnation, and they can, specifically tell facts of previous life, like, they were in a previous life, like parents and places and everything. Does that falls as well on a spiritual phenomena?
You refer to those Those individuals, those children who remember previous incarnations,
Exactly.
reincarnations.
Yeah. They pretty much they still in a let's say transition
Uh-huh.
to accept who they are right now as who they were in the previous life.
Yeah, it's obviously a spiritual phenomenon in the sense that it's the spirit who is being able to reveal previous existence and more, even sometimes more, even more than that, to be to seems to still be living more the previous reincarnation than the present ones. But it has nothing to do with leadership. It's not in any way a mediumistic phenomenon.
Okay, it's just a spiritual thing, but it's not a mediumship related case,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Number 7. The explanation of the phenomenon accepted by Spiritism, along with their causes and moral consequences, comprise an entire science and philosophy in and of themselves, and they require serious, persevering, and in-depth study.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
So we have individuals who believe in the phenomenon, who believe there exist spirits and the spirits are hanging out around here, and there are people who go after trying to prove the existence of phenomena. You see that on TV shows, and it was those ghostbusters of the real ones, not the movie ones that you see on TV that come all those things. And is that spiritism? Absolutely not, because spiritism goes way beyond that. Spiritists are not only seek to prove the existence of spirits, actually spiritists are not seek to prove anything. It presents evidences and anyone take it any way they want. But the spiritism goes way beyond because it connects us over here along the explanation of the phenomena accepted by spiritism. Gives that what differentiates spiritism from chasing ghosts, so to say, along with their causes and moral consequences, comprise the entire science and philosophy in and of themselves. And, more important, requires serious, persevering, and in-depth study. So like any other science, you need to put time and effort to understand, to study the science. But the key word here is moral consequences. So the Ghostbusters on TV, they do find that there is a spirit in that house, and so what? What do you do with that information now? Spirit just goes beyond. How can we help you? Why are you here? Why are you disturbing this family? Can we help you to relieve yourself from your pain so you can leave these people alone? Not for them, but for you. This is the science and the philosophical part of the spiritualism. Eventually, that's me saying, we will evolve enough to understand that, yeah, spirit's existence in a way, it's us without a physical body, but what do we do with this information? And when you put yourself in a position to utilize that information for the good of yourself and the good of others, then we are dealing with spiritism.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Spiritism can only regard as serious critics those who have seen and studied the whole matter, who have dealt into it with the patience and perseverance of a conscientious observer, who have as much understanding of the subject as a most enlightened adherent, who have not therefore acquired their understanding via literally science fiction, who will not attempt to oppose any fact with which they are unfamiliar or any argument upon which they have not meditated or have refuted only by denying it, but who use other arguments that are more peremptory. Finally, those who can point to a more logical cause behind the established facts. Such critics have yet to appear.
And Kardec himself is perhaps the best example that you can use for what he's talking about here. Once keep being invited to participate in one of the seances that was happening, he would say, no, I can be bothered with that. I have more important things to do. I don't want to be dealing with superstitious things. Once he noticed that the group who was invited him deserve a greater consideration for being themselves serious people, educated people, intellectuals themselves, the Kardec on them some more respect, decided to visit them. Then he took this approach. He studied seriously, analyzed it seriously, and then came to a conclusion that it was unrefutable what he was witnessing there. So Kardec makes the same invitation for everyone. All right, we have developed this doctrine called Spiritism. We are open to discuss. We are open for rejection. Once you do the same thing, you read on it, you study it, you analyze it, and then you have your conclusion. If your conclusion is negative, that's fine. You completely accept that. If you find points that does not make sense, we are open to discuss it. But Kardec says for those who are seriously willing to study, to do their work, to make a unbiased conclusion, no one have come back and been able to reject or to not accept it. Some people may say, I don't want to deal with that. It's all good, it's all true. You study it and I analyze it, and I come to the conclusion that the Spiritism has all the good points, but I just don't care for it. I don't want to deal with that. Absolutely fine. It's an option. But Kardec will just not accept the rejections, the contradictions for those who did not took the effort at least to open the book and read. And unfortunately, that's what happens more often.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. 15. We previously made reference to the word miracle, and a brief observation concerning the subject would not be out of place in a chapter dealing with the extraordinary. In its primitive acceptation, and according to its etymology, the word miracle means something extraordinary, something wonderful to behold. But this word, like so many others, have strayed far from its original meaning, and nowadays refers to, according to academia, an act of divine power that is contrary to the common laws of nature. Such is actually its usual acceptation, and only by comparison, a metaphor, does it apply to common things that surprise us and whose cause is unknown to us. We have absolutely no intention of examining whether or not, under certain circumstances, God might deem it useful to derogate from the laws that have been divinely established. Our objective is solely to show that as extraordinary as spirit phenomena may be, they do not in any way derogate from those laws, nor is there any miraculous any miraculous, much less extraordinary or supernatural character about them. A miracle has no rational explanation. Spirit phenomenon, on the other hand, may be explained in a more rational manner. Thus, they are not miracles, but rather simple effects that have their reason for being included among general laws. A miracle has yet another characteristic. It is an uncommon and isolated event. Thus, any event that can be reproduced at will, so to speak, and by several individuals cannot be a miracle. Okay. Stop here?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
So as I said before, the word miracle becomes a big topic in the conversation of the supernatural and superstitions. And it's interesting how the meaning of the word as we know today has shifted from its etymological meaning something extraordinary or something wonderful to behold. So illusionist on the stage would be a miracle by the etymological meaning, right? You're doing things that it's extraordinary, meaning that it's not ordinary, okay? And it's something wonderful to behold. Some magicians, some illusionists, especially illusionists, they can do things that would be labeled as miracle for the true meaning of the word, the etymological meaning of the word. Unfortunately, basically, and that's me, my opinion, religion is one who shift the meaning of the word miracle to now represent something, and Kardec makes sure to say it's according to academia. I'm not making this up. The academics define the word miracle now as an act of divine power that is contrary to the common laws of nature. In that sense, Spiritualism does not believe in miracles, because in Spiritualism we believe that if something happens, it has to be in accordance with the laws, to the natural laws. If we understand or not, to come with the premises that we now understand and we know all the natural laws is an aberration. It's extremely arrogant. Yet we as human beings, our sciences are just starting to understand those natural laws now. And I think today we are comfortable with this. At the time of Kardec, the scientists of the time were pretty full of themselves, thinking that they have figured everything out. And if something happened beyond their the scientific understanding, then would be a miracle, right? One would really question, why would God send people, send prophets, or even Jesus for that matter, to perform acts that break God's own laws? Why would God break his own laws? It is unreasonable to consider, if God is perfect, if created perfect laws, one would not expect that this perfection could be broken. So if something happens, it has to be in accordance to natural laws, except that we do not know all the natural laws yet. We just start to scratch the surface when it comes to understand the natural laws. Another thing that he reminds us here is that miracle, if a miracle existed, would have the characteristic of being uncommon and an isolated event. And here he makes statements that the spiritual phenomenon or mediumship is common and it's happening everywhere, all over the place. It's like a dollar bill. You know, if miracle existed, it would be like a $5,000 bill. But if mediumistic phenomena, being physical or intelligent phenomena, it's happening everywhere in many places and is a very commonplace. Problem is that we do not understand or know that those are indeed spiritual phenomena. Okay, questions? Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
In case of things like not spiritual, but for example, illness, that science says, listen, there's nothing else we can do, you're gonna die. And people, for some reason, prayer, whatever part of the mind, they turn around and they live, 30 more years. So would you say then what I'm getting that from your explanation, whatever we think is a miracle, it's a wrong diagnosis of our understanding of the whatever situation it is?
No, I don't think wrong diagnosis, but the limitations of our knowledge of could be of that disease, or the limitation of our understanding of human powers of self-cure, limitation of understanding of medical technologies that comes from the spiritual world being way more developed than ours, and perhaps in the spiritual world they are able to perform surgeries, and they are, to perform medical procedures that our science has not catch up to it yet. So a doctor, oncologist will come and say, there is nothing they can do, you die in 6 months. A more humbled doctor say, our science cannot go beyond what we have done so far. Statistically speaking, someone in your condition would die in 6 years, 6 months. That would be more humbled way of saying it. I'm sorry, our science cannot do anything beyond what we have done so far. And statistically speaking, cases like yours, the half-life would be 6 months or 6 years or whatever. That places the position to say, maybe there is something else that can be done. But in accordance to our science, that's as far as we can go.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention spiritual healings or whatever, because that's exactly what I was studying, why people don't believe in the spirits. But so how would science define, describe, explain, a person that has, illness, cancer, whatever, and that situation happens, and then search for an alternative way like spiritual healing, and goes back to the doctor, listen, I'm cured. And the doctor asks, so what happened? And then he explained what happened. So how does science explain something like that if it's not supernatural, if it's not a miracle, if it's not, none of those words that they have in order to explain something that they cannot understand?
As much as I know, they do exactly that. We cannot explain, we do not understand. Good for you, you got cured. But as far as we can go, we do not understand that. That happens all the time. There have happened cases in one someone who they statistically expected to live a year and is living 17, 18 years with the disease. And some cases the patient was completely cured. Our science cannot explain and have no, I'm sorry, it does have having spiritism, tools to understand. But physically, on the physical science, they have no tools to explain or even try to explain it. The only alternative, at least at this moment, would to be a little bit more humbled and look extra physical sources. But having said that, it may be a physical cause in a way that our science does not know yet. There may be some biochemical things happening to our that we do not understand yet.
Quantum physics. That's the word nowadays, right?
Yeah?
Quantum physics, that's the word nowadays.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we don't understand our physical science is very limited, even without consideration of the spiritual causes. You know, you may ask why people get GBMs. You know, we don't know. Every time I got a patient that comes with a new diagnosis of this dreadful killer, you know, that is GBM, the first question is, how did I get that? I don't know. Whoever answers that will win the Nobel Prize for sure. We don't know how that happens. We know it happens, and you know that most people will die in a couple of years from this thing. Cannot explain anything beyond that. But it's there, it's totally physical. We can remove it, we can put it in a microscope and then identify the cells. And that's as far as we can do it so far. And you can try many, many things and nothing works.
Yeah, even with the...
But maybe there is a scientific solution for this. Perhaps there will be. Perhaps we will be able to understand how to prevent, how to cure these things, even without considering the spiritual world.
Yeah, even with the some psychological illness, like, you know, people that have the compulsive cue or do whatever, they're trying to explain as a gene or whatever. But it's getting to a point that eventually they're gonna have to take a leap of faith and understand that it's a spiritual thing that, you know, has nothing to do with, you know, DNA or whatever, that people behave in the way that they behave in most of cases.
Yeah, I always take the approach that science must be atheistic, but not scientists. Science should never put God or spiritual phenomenon in the equation, because that becomes an easy way out, basically, but not scientists. Scientists should have the beliefs, but should never put God or spiritual solutions into the equation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Science performs miracles every day in the eyes of the uncultivated. That is why it used to be that those who knew more than the common folk were regarded as witches. And since it was believed that all superhuman science was diabolical, they were burned at the stake. Nowadays, we are more civilized. It is sufficient to put them in an asylum.
Yeah, I like Kardec's.
Isn't it?
Sarcasms over here.
Yes.
Yeah, he's sarcastic. He's sarcastic,
So
isn't he?
Very
Yeah.
sarcastic over here, yeah.
He is so good how he puts his words.
Before was diabolical, we would kill you. Now you're nice, and I'll just call you crazy and put you in an asylum.
Yeah, that's sarcastic. That's cynical, yes.
It is.
It's quite sarcastic over him.
Yeah.
But again, in science, you perform what's called miracle for the eyes of the unlearned. I have used in the past the example of Anhanguera, the Portuguese man that in the time of just after the discovery of Brazil was looking for the emerald and could not find it, and he believed that the natives of the land, the Indians knew where the emeralds were, so he took some liquid, put on a jar, and said, "Listen, if you don't tell me where the emerald is, I'm gonna set all your waters into fire." And he lightened the liquid over there, and the liquid caught on fire, and he was considered a miracle man, not knowing that what was set on fire was brandy, was alcohol. So for them, it was a miracle because they hadn't learned. So he was considered some kind of a divinity. That was good for him. The bad for him is that the Indians have no idea where the emerald was, and he never found it, ended up dying of malaria over there. And it could be seen as diabolical, like the case of the in the 50s, when the Belgian couple was taking Polaroid pictures of some in a tribal in Africa, and they killed him because they thought that those missionaries taking those pictures on Polaroid was actually stealing the souls of the people over there. So they killed him because he was diabolical, was stealing their souls, because they are uncultured. Science explains both. You know, the alcohol can be ignited, and for those who know, who understand, the photography of Polaroid, but for them was miracle or was completely supernatural. So science every day is breaking more and more what was considered to be supernatural or extraordinary to be commonplace, to be completely doable and explainable.
Yeah,
Yep.
this asylum thing is struck a nerve on me. Shouldn't we? Shouldn't we? Because I'm just linking to João said in the first part, uh, just as an analogy that in the first part we are participating in someone that ended up killing himself or herself. We are also responsible, and now we, as a spiritist, we stood. I'm not gonna say that we know, but we stood that there's a pretty decent number of people that are in an asylum that is spiritual problems. So shouldn't we be more active and be and participating on with those people or with science in that regard, because we have the pretty much the answer for that, and not just sitting around here and seeing people going crazy.
If we should be more active, I would say yes, but I have no idea what to do. Do you know what can we do?
Can I say something, Renato? Um, as you know, the work that we used to do Monday nights, there are many included in all those Monday sessions that they were in asylum, and they're still in asylum. Um, so anytime that we were working and or praying in relation to the work that is done in the center, and the way that I see is also is not only on Monday nights, but also every time that the center gets like, let's call it reactive on Zoom, with everybody thinking in the same energy of that place. It continues emanating prayers. The way that I see is that every single one of the people that still continue to participate in these meetings, with the prayers at the beginning, at the end, and studying these, are continuing uh, the same finality that the center is there for it. You're supposed to be having this mental, intellectual, and spiritual conversation in order to try to understand the process that we're going through. So I think I speak just for myself because I do see that a lot. again, just the fact that we are all praying, that work, it gets kind of divided also to those people who are belonging to the centering that level, who are in asylums right now. As you remember, Zoraida always call them, not only them, but people in prisons and foster cares and orphanages and all that. So all those people that are evoked in the work that we do, the way that I see it, are being affected through the prayers that we continue to do.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think we're doing something, and
The complexity, the difficulty of to be more active, because to me, your question suggesting this, should we be able to prevent these people end up in an asylum because they are not crazy, they are suffering from obsession or anything like that? Psychiatry has very objective means of making diagnosis. There's something called a DMS that in order to label, so to say, someone as bipolar or schizophrenic or schizotype or whatever the diagnosis they give to individual, they need to go through a series of check marks of many things that the patient is having acutely or chronically. Okay. And if they get, let's say me, let's say that my wife sees me behaving weirdly and decides to take me to a psychiatrist, and they go through all those check marks and say, Elmis behave A, behave B, behave D, behave C. It is always consistent with the diagnosis of schizophrenia, so to say. Then I will be labeled as schizophrenic, regardless of my behavior being caused by a brain anomaly or being caused by any spirit. The behavior is there. The professional, the medical doctor is going to those check marks and say, I'm is doing A, B, C, and D, and those are consistent with schizophrenia, so we're gonna call Elmer schizophrenia, right? And it's there, you can deny it. And then it may be that Elmer is being obsessed. Or Elmo has that brain anomaly that allows obsessor to be even more aggressive against me or with me. What I'm saying, the things may coexist, the physical and the spiritual. So it's very hard for us as spiritists to take a more, or at least the way I think, a more proactive, a more palpable action, besides what Fabio had mentioned, what Spiritism can do. And another alternative is what's happening in Brazil in some places where they have Spiritist hospitals. When you receive individuals who has, according to the DMS, all those behaviors or those things that goes along with the diagnosis of schizophrenia or schizotype or whatever it is, but being treated in a Spiritist hospital in which receive medical and spiritual treatment together with tremendous rate of success. That would be the most proactive that we could do, is start open up hospitals to treat these people where you treat them both the physical and the spiritual at the same time.
yeah, because I think when you not the patient itself, because the patient is already loose, but the family, when you are suffering, I think you're more proactive to new ideas, even though you might not believe. People might be open to try something different if science is not working.
Yeah,
And yeah, and because sometimes again, we have all this knowledge, and again, understand we have to respect everybody's free will, and understand also when someone is ready, you know, all that. But sometimes I feel, you know, now I'm talking to him, and just for myself, that we may not do it enough. We maybe take a passive position in order to respect, and all this respecting that sometimes I think sometimes we need to be out there. You know, I was just watching the other day again for I don't know how many times Pinga Fogo, and I was thinking, you know, how Chico was out there doing something, even though he knew people wouldn't believe or ridicularize him, but he was trying to do the first step, you know, just plant the seed or whatever. So that's why I was asking, you know, what we could do. I didn't know in Brazil they have this kind of hospital. Maybe going forward we can do something similar.
Yeah, I think the future would be exactly that. The combination of all psychiatric wards would have a treatment to cover both the spiritual and the physical. I think that would be the, the future of it. We had an example. Our beloved Eduardo used to go to our center. Unfortunately, returned to the spiritual world a few years back, and I'm sure he's listening to us right now. That he had a diagnosis, a formal diagnosis of schizophrenia. You know, follow up with his psychiatrist, and had tremendous improvement once he started coming to our meetings. You know, we witnessed him going from really paranoid kind of statesman to lowering down to a very normal, by then, you know, just close to his death. He was, you know, somebody would not in any way perceive any mental illnesses on him, unless when he come, because he was very open about it and said that he was a schizophrenic. We witnessed his going from someone who was all way out there with loose loosen ideations to a very proper way of thinking just near to his discarnation. And that's me saying again, I'm totally convinced that is when we're able to combine the physical and the spiritual treatment. Because when he was only taking the physical treatment, he was a mess.
Thanks, Fabio.
But again, he took the initiative to come to the center and follow the center. And as a comparison, his own brother is also schizophrenic, absolutely reject spirituality, and it's really struggling badly, unfortunately. All right?
Okay, we'll continue.
Sure.
If someone were really dead and were resuscitated by divine intervention, then, as we stated earlier, we would have a true miracle because it would be contrary to the laws of nature. However, if the person only appeared to be dead and still preserved a fragment of latent vitality, and science or some magnetic action managed to reanimate him or her, then to enlightened individuals, such would merely be a natural phenomenon. Nevertheless, in the eyes of uncultivated folk, the incident will be regarded as miraculous, and its author would either be chased with stones or venerated, depending on the character of the individuals. If in a rural area, a physicist were to fly a kite rigged to attract electricity, which then would cause a bolt to strike a tree, this new Prometheus would certainly be viewed as possessing some diabolical power. Moreover, one can say that, remarkably, Prometheus seems to us to have been a precursor to Benjamin Franklin, while Joshua, in making the sun, or rather the earth, stand still, will provide us with a true miracle, because we have never heard of any magnetizer gifted with enough power to perform such a wonder. Of all the spirit phenomenon, one of the most extraordinary and indisputable, and one that most obviously demonstrates the action of hidden intelligences, involves direct writing. Despite the fact that it is produced by hidden beings, however, this particular phenomenon is no more miraculous than any other that are also caused by invisible agents. For these invisible beings who inhabit space are one of the very powers of nature, a power that unceasingly acts both upon the physical and the mental worlds.
Thanks.
Okay.
So here Kardec continues with bringing examples of things that at one point would be considered supernatural because science could not explain, something as simple as a rigged kite in the air that attracts lightnings and produces fire to a tree can now easily be understood. At one point was completely extraordinary, and he uses Prometheus as an example because Prometheus is one of the gods in the Greek mythology that was associated with fire. And interesting that Kardec said, again with a little bit of sarcasm over here, we can perhaps even see that what Franklin is a reincarnation, so to say, of Prometheus, which of course, being sarcastic, Prometheus is a myth. Not all the phenomena can be easily understood, and Spirituals does not claim to be able to fully explain everything. One of them that is very hard to be explained involves the direct writing, which is a physical phenomenon in which a piece of paper placed inside of a drawer, closed, locked, give some time open, and that piece of paper you have a written message. It's a physical phenomenon. We know that. Spirits were able to use ectoplasm for mediums of physical phenomena around the place or far away, and utilize that ectoplasm was able to temporarily give life, so to say, to a pen to write a message. That is as much as I know, as far as you can explain it now. It has happened, it being witnessed, people had seen it, Kardec has witnessed, Kardec has seen it. We come to the understand of how physical phenomena works to a certain extent. It's ectoplasm in action. Ectoplasm has this ability that is instructed to be used by spirits, to be manipulated by spirits. But as far as we can go so far, we cannot explain more than that. If you're not satisfied, then do your research, go and And I think that we as a science of spiritualism, we are kind of lagging behind, not doing more research, try to understand this phenomenon as we are lacking behind, in my opinion. I think the science of spiritualism by now should be seriously studied in universities, but we are still far from it, I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, I'm just I remember you explained this in the past, but I can't get it. We studied that, in the beginning, there was letters that were written, even inside the drawer, just to, for materialization, pretty much. But nowadays, this is not used anymore. We use the medium to writing. So, are we using that this type of thing, so we can at the medium and also us working, that we all can gain and learn from it, or because it's I don't think it's easier. I think for the spirit doesn't really matter using a medium or directing, writing in the paper. So why is that we switch from the materialization type of writing to the actual mediumship per se writing?
One thing that psychography and psychophony is much easier and a lot less dangerous than the physical phenomena. The physical phenomena are more difficult. They requires a lot of more effort, immense amounts of energy, exposes the mediums to greater risks. And since we have a better way of performing it, a safer way of performing it, psychography replaces the direct writing. Again, at least in Spiritism, the physical phenomena was way of attracting us, catching our attention, was, so to say, the children's toys that we mature no longer need them anymore. But there is still some demonstrations of some physical phenomena throughout the world, including by non-spiritists, spiritualist groups out there.
Thank you.
Can I just add something?
Sure.
Renato, as you know, I write a lot when I used to go to the center, and I have my whole life being able to do that. But now I am channeling to do the work that we do. And also I have, in the past, when I was 9 and 12, well, I've always been very artistic since I was a very, very, very young, drawing and with music. But when I was about 9, I started doing drawings with paintings with my feet. And this is something that my father and my brother were present when they saw me doing that. And I did maybe that 3 times. And I did many drawings with my left hand too, when I was about 12. So, and to this day, even before I started attending the center, I was able to channel. I remember having this conversation with Elmo many, many years ago. I started having these manifestations of writing and drawings where clearly they were spirits who needed to get out of their system something. And because at that time I was very much involved in reading the gospel according to Spiritism, and it seemed like that transaction, so to speak, it was enabling them to kind of conduct themselves in a better way, since I was much younger and I still believed I preserved that ingenuity that I had when I was a child. So I think that enabled them to see that there is no intention of me benefiting from that. And this is a way, I'm talking about me being medium. I don't know if another mediums feel this way. I'm just talking about myself. And this is a little answer to your question. So I don't know if that helps.
Well, it helps a lot. Wow.
That helps, of course.
Oh boy.
That's good. Let's just finish this item.
Okay.
Although you're a minute over, but let's just finish this item.
Yeah. Okay. By enlightening us concerning the true nature of this power, Spiritism has provided us with the key to an infinite number of occurrences that are unexplained and unexplainable matters in any other way, and in which in remote times were regarded as wonders. As was the case with magnetism, Spiritism has revealed, if not an unknown law, at least a poorly understood one, or rather a law whose effects we have always known about because they have been produced down through the ages, but whose governing law had been unknown, and it was therefore ignorance of such law that gave rise to superstition. However, since the law has been understood, the extraordinary has disappeared, and the phenomenon have been reintegrated into the order of natural events. Hence, by enabling a table to move or the dead to write, Spiritists do not perform any more of a miracle than a doctor who revives a person on the edge of death, or a physicist who manages to attract a bolt of lightning. Anyone who intended to perform miracles with the help of Spiritist science would either be ignorant or of the doctrine or a charlatan.
Okay. So basically now Kardec's telling us that at one point in our existence, the most intellectual, the smartest people living, they believe that the sun was basically a little hole in the sky that opened up and the light came through and closed up and the night started. And the sun never stopped being what the sun is. As we develop our science and explains things better. So a lot of things that used to be considered supernatural, now it's just commonplace because science explains it. And the science of spiritism explains the spiritual phenomena. If anyone seeks to use spiritism to perform miracles, is someone who definitely does not understand the doctrine. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there doing that, calling themselves spiritism, or is a charlatans. We could talk a little bit about magnetism. What time is up? Hopefully we can do that next week. Let's make our prayers and call it for the day.
Okay, just for those that joined us only on the second part, this Saturday we have a lecture by Álvaro Mordecai. It's the 10 Plagues of Egypt, a Spiritist view. Okay, at Saturday 11 a.m. on the United States Spirits Federation YouTube and Facebook. Okay, who's going to do the final prayer?
Okay, I'll do the final prayer, John.
Okay, so
To our dearly beloved Father, Jesus Christ, to our spiritual benefactors, the guardian angels, all that have contributed to this meeting here tonight, and giving us all the importance of understanding Spiritism, that it is all that it is, and much more for all our understanding and learning in this planet Earth, helping each other, helping all that surrounds us, dear Lord. Teachers and mentors, all that have contributed to so much work here, giving us enlightenment and understanding. We ask, dear Father, all that are in the spirit world and all that are here in the physical world, continue to be guided, assisted, and helped, Father. Those that are in institutions, in hospitals, in hospices, Lord, we pray that you assist us with our prayers each day, each moment in our lives, to have a moment of goodness sent to them, and most important, through charity of love. We thank you, dear Father, and we ask, as we leave here today, to remember that prayers of all of the most important for those that are in need. here and in the spirit world. Guide us, assist us, dear Lord. May you have patience with us and mercy, for all we are doing here is learning and doing all that we can with the blessings of all your guidance. We thank you, dear Lord. We pray for those that are in hospitals, dear Father, going through this pandemic, the doctors, the nurses, all that are front runners who are there each day, helping and guiding and assisting. Help them, dear Lord, to be strong each day, to make it a new day of strength and of faith in their hearts, never to give up. But we will do our part to continue with prayers, assisting and helping, dear Lord. With our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you. Allow us to be here again next week, to continue our studies and helping all those around us. We thank you, dear Lord. And with that in mind, we ask permission to close our meeting tonight. So be it.